J. Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Booyah is right. Happy Monday, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show viewers. Thank you for spending time with us. Hope you had a great weekend. We got a lot on our plate today. Cavs, Browns, Guardians. Jose Ramirez.
Big guards.
Jose Ramirez single-handedly won a game for him on Saturday with his base running. Not as bad as base running. We're going to talk about that. Cavs have two more candidates in the hopper. I have a theory on how this whole thing is going to play out. It's going to be protracted. It's going to be very long, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get into that.
Cool.
And we're going to talk to Field Yates, my old buddy from ESPN. He's an NFL expert. He is not just a fantastic reporter, but a really, really fantastic guy, too. I think our audience is going to love him. And a lot more to get to as we roll through our day. Jameis Winston, did he say the quiet part out loud? I think he did. I think he did.
Kind of.
We'll fill you in on that story, and we'll have all of our opinions on that. Guys, good weekend, everybody?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Rocking the Jim Brown. I love it.
Yes, sir, man. You know, we got a football. It's a football day. I felt real Cleveland Brownish
Did
today.
you?
I'm missing football. It's around the time that I started missing football.
I know. It's been a while since the draft.
Yeah.
OTAs really don't scratch the itch. Here's the good news. Training camps open next month.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Do you see what the NFL has done
Yeah.
in their marketing genius? They have strung along made-for-TV and major events that keep the fans engaged 12 months out of the year.
At first, it started off with them taking over Sundays from the churches.
They did.
Now
They own
took
it.
over the whole damn calendar.
They own a day of the week.
Yeah, they own the whole calendar now.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're never more than 4 to 5 weeks away from the next major event in the NFL.
I mean, even on the 3rd of June,
know.
Justin Jefferson, $110 million guaranteed.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I know it's not on the rundown, but I think the question here is this the new norm for wide receivers? It's become the money position.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I'd say for the last 5 years, really since OBJ and Jarvis were ushered out, the Browns have kind of looked at that position as they look at linebackers. Yeah, we just get a dude and plug him in. He's fast. He'll be good.
I saw a stat, Jay, that 5 of the 8 highest-paid non-quarterbacks in football are now receivers, and that does not include CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase, who could make it 5 of 5.
Yeah, and I think they will. I mean, you can see where these contracts are trending. General managers are now valuing the wide receiver almost as much as they do, and probably more than they do the pass rusher. Because it used to be quarterback, pass rusher, right?
And offensive tackle.
Offensive tackle. But now they're seeing what teams can do when they've got that different. Now, the odd thing there is when you look at the team that's in the midst of a dynasty, currently not an incredible wide receiver on its roster. Now, they've got a tight end who is a damn good wide receiver. But it's interesting that the trend in the NFL is to just almost overpay for some of these super talented wide receivers. When you look at the Patriots dynasty, the year they had Randy Moss, they didn't win it. They won it with a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say that we talk about the 2 greatest quarterbacks of all time. I mean, there's Patrick Mahomes and Brady. If you got one of them,
Is Patrick Mahomes your number 2?
That definitely helps.
Is he not? Is he your number 2?
Oh yeah.
Wow, no kidding.
He's eclipsed.
It's a fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, he's eclipsed Joe Montana.
He's already surpassed Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
That was nice knowing you, Aaron, but that's where he goes. Sometimes people just come in and just be the dude.
I feel like we should start a new segment on the show, Domestication of G. Bush. Like, what project did you have on your hands this weekend at the homestead?
Oh,
because I know you're really diving into this home ownership thing.
Oh, man. It was, listen. See,
was it a busy weekend at the house?
Oh, see, look, once again, you tell yourself that you're not getting into that. I told myself I wasn't doing none of that, man. I was getting bags of mulch. It's this silent little. It's just silent. We got a next door neighbor. Shout out to my next door neighbor, man. He a brother too, man. So
putting the mulch out, making the yard look nice.
He had his old lady was out there putting the mulch in the ground. I said, oh, this is gonna be bad. Next thing I know, 10 hours later, you know what we must do?
Rosebush wants some mulch.
Rosebush must have rose bushes. I said, dang, bro, now we getting putting them in.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, the quality of our grass is not very good.
Yeah, here comes the fertilizer, man.
And then I'm like, man, next thing you know, we back to getting fertilizer and a sprinkler. And I'm like, bro, listen, this is, yeah, man.
Well, welcome to the rest of your life. The good news is it does come with an expiration date.
Yeah.
Your expiration date.
Yes, right.
Like, that's it. I always thought, not jokingly, I, out of naivete, told my dad after we bought our first house, I worked like crazy on it. It wasn't a new home. It needed some work. When I finally got done, I sat back one day. My dad was over. And by the way, today would have been my dad's 85th birthday.
Happy heavenly birthday.
Happy heavenly birthday.
87th birthday. I miss you, Dad. Love you. He would always come down from Sandusky to Columbus, and he would help me with projects. And out of my just young ignorance, I told Dad when we finished this particular project, Dad, let's go out on the beer, or I'm out on the deck. I want to have a beer, celebrate. So we cracked a beer, and I said, man, this feels good, Dad. He goes, what? And I said, I'm done, man. I'm done. Like I finished the basement. I put in some new landscaping. I did this. I did that. I redid the deck. I did wallpapering in the house. It took me a year, but I got it to where I wanted. I said, this feels so good. He laughed. He goes, you think you're done now, huh? I said, yeah. He goes, son, you're never done. And truer words have never been spoken. Like, wow. I've been going nonstop. Even when we moved into our house here, it's new. I haven't stopped. Yeah. I mean, it's constantly one thing after another, but it's a good life. Yeah. So welcome to it.
Yeah.
Glad to have you in the club.
Yeah, in the club.
How was your weekend, Mikey?
Very calm, very relaxed.
Chill?
Very nice. Needed it after last weekend, so it was good to get back into the regular routine. And speaking of regular routines, as we do with every start of the show, it's a good reminder that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. It's the only sportsbook we use here on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And right now, it's winner-take-all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I went over to Progressive Field this weekend, Jay, and I was in attendance for this game. It's not a parlay, but our guy, Let's Go Guards, bet the under on 6.5 runs in Saturday's 3-2 win for Cleveland. It's not great odds, but he bet 65. A win's a win. He won about $60, took home $119 total. So shout out to Let's Go Guards for that winning FanDuel ticket. If you have a winning FanDuel ticket, make sure you guys send it in to us, and we will make sure we feature it on the show in the coming days. And there's no better place to start today's conversation, Jay, than with the Guardians today, who won 2 of 3 against the Nationals. I know they dropped the final match of the series, but they won the first 2. Steven Kwan came back. You got another great pitching performance from Tanner Bybee, from Ben Lively, Cookie Carrasco in Game 3, not as much. So I'm just going to give you guys the floor, and let's talk about this weekend series against Washington, how the Guards did, and how it sets up for what's ahead against Kansas City.
The one thing that jumped out to me as I was watching the game Saturday, we had an MVP conversation about Hosey the day before. And why isn't he getting more attention? Yeah. And we all said, I'm surprised, but I'm not shocked because he doesn't play in a major market. And, there are some guys that are Aaron Judge is having an incredible year. There's some other guys having great years. And the one thing that I said, I think the reason that he is the MVP but probably won't win it is because aside from his tentpole stats, which, on base, average slugging, home runs, RBI, I said the reason he's the MVP is because he is the team's best player, and every single second of every single game, he's playing harder than everybody else on the field. He is the definition of playing a game with your hair on fire. But he does it in a controlled manner. And I had mentioned specifically, he's the best base runner in the game. And he proved that Saturday, and his move won the game for them. It was 2-2. The ball kicks away from the catcher. At this point, I think it was 2-0. Hosey goes all the way around from second and alertly realizes that the catcher wasn't going to get to the ball and have a chance to throw him out at home. Now, what's crazy to me is in real time he's doing the math saying, oh, I got this. That's difficult to do. You have to look at the catcher, see where the ball went, time it all out, and figure out if you can beat the ball to home. It took an incredible inside the base slide to get the bag. I think my favorite part of this is the slide. Watch how late he puts his hand out to touch home plate.
That's how he got up, though.
His hand doesn't come out to touch the plate until he's even with the plate. Why? So the catcher doesn't have a chance to tag him.
He's so far up north, and when he's tagging that base, and you mentioned that, one of the most, I guess, underrated parts of baseball is base running. The fact that, getting a good turn, turning off the inside part of the base, driving, yes, not making a crazy loop, getting in a straight line. And him and Steven Kwan they're just masterful at it. And basically he decided right there, like, hey, I'm going to win this game myself.
Right. He did.
I'm going. He read the tea leaves. He understood what type of time it was. It was like, this is a pivotal play, and he's just good at that. He's just good at understanding, like, when they need to play, what it needs. And his glove, to me, is underrated as well.
I agree, G. I think he's got a tremendous glove. He made a play in the top of the ninth that may have squelched a rally before it began. If he doesn't make that play at third base, then they've got the leadoff runner on. And who knows what happens from there. Washington runs as well as any team, or at least as much as any team in the game. They just run and run and run. Dave Martinez is an aggressive manager. He wants to get guys on, get them over, and get them in. He knows he has to do that because his pitching is,
trash.
Well, especially the bullpen. So you got to do what you got to do. But I just think Jose's baseball IQ shows itself in ways that maybe the other candidates for MVP don't. Like Aaron Judge is Paul Bunyan with a bat that hits the ball 500 miles. Jose is a baseball player. He is a pure baseball player. And for my money, I think there's a reason that the Guardians are 39-20. And it all starts with your best player. And what he does is sprinkle down effort to everybody else. Because when everybody sees your best player on the team playing that hard, you don't dare not play hard.
Those are those unwritten intangibles that I always talk about.
There's
right?
no column for that.
Like energy being transferable. Like he's clearly baseball's most complete player.
I agree.
It's almost like watching control chaos when he's out there. Back to the base running, I think that shows when you are a true student of the game, right? It shows your IQ because before he went from second to home, he had stole second base in that same sequence. And I can only imagine the amount of time that goes into studying the pitcher, studying the catcher, knowing what pitcher is going to throw what and what situation on what count and when to go. And it just seems like he hits all the right numbers at the right time. It's like he's always, checking the right boxes at the right time and knowing what to do. Like, I really think that's baseball's most complete player right there. Bull was right when he said it. He has no flaws in his game.
No, he doesn't. What's really funny to me about Jose is when you look at him, and it's either in street clothes or even standing there on the field, he doesn't necessarily pass the look test. He's short. He's pudgy. He doesn't look like he would be the game's best player, but neither did Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Sometimes in baseball, well, look at what's going on right now in basketball. Like, you got a guy in the finals that if he walked in this room, you'd think he worked on a dock somewhere loading ships.
Look at the MVP.
Look at the MVP. And it's two different guys, and they don't look anything like what we think NBA superstars look like. And Jose doesn't look like what the prototypical baseball star really is kind of Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Even bigger than the prototypical baseball star. And then here is this guy, diminutive in stature, not huge, but the second he steps on the field, he turns 7 foot tall.
If you go back and play that clip again, watch his secondary lead, right? He gets to get to home because his secondary lead he's already halfway to third before when the pitch is thrown. So he gets a tremendous secondary lead, and now when he gets the ball, he's already turning third base, and that's because being a good base runner is about anticipation.
Sure.
And
Instincts.
And just knowing, like, okay, when that ball took that carom off his glove, he said, oh, no, this is going down to if it hits the backstop, I'm definitely running.
Yeah.
And about halfway through, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going for this. I'm going. Right?
And what I love is, and I'm glad you mentioned the secondary lead, because he did 3 or 4 things in that if he doesn't do, he's out.
He's dead.
The secondary lead is the first. His tight turn of third is the second. He barely hits the grass on third base. And the baseline is only like 1.5 feet or whatever out of the baseline. And he barely hits the grass. That's how tight he makes that turn. That's wide receiver-like ability to pivot and go.
How many people you didn't see turn third base be all in the coach's box?
They usually are. If he doesn't get the secondary, if he doesn't take such a tight turn, if he doesn't take the inside lane on the slide home, and if he doesn't wait until the absolute last second to tap home plate, because if you come in, a lot of guys come in like this.
Yeah.
Well, hell, the catcher has a target before you get to the bag, and it's the arm. He didn't allow him that target.
Late hands.
He kept the arm here until he was right next to home plate, and then he got it. Which is risky, too, because if you're moving fast, if you misjudge that and you reach out too late and you miss the plate, you're out now because the catcher's going to tag you and you miss home plate. So it's just like it's an accumulation of all of the great things that make him the game's most complete player. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating to me is if you were to take a poll of baseball fans, coast to coast, and ask them who is baseball's most complete player, he'd get single-digit votes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yet, when you watch him every day like we do, if you know, you know. And he is absolutely the game's most complete player, in my view.
One thing we missed, too, he got on first by beating out an infield single.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a dribble to third he beat out. Yeah.
Every bag in that run was strictly due to his hustle, his speed, and his base running intelligence. He made that run happen. Now, at the time, it was 2-0. And so, if it was 2-2, I'm not sure he tries to come home. I'm not, because, hell, you're the tying run and you're 90 feet away, or you're the winning run and you're 90 feet away. Early enough in the game, and that was a game, too, that was really it was a team effort. Ben Lively went out there and pitched his ass off.
And Kwan was back, and he's hitting at the rate he was.
Well, Kwan played
before.
Friday, but not Saturday.
I know, but I'm just saying he's back.
I'm just talking about Saturday was one of those games that if they end up making the playoffs by a game, you can circle Saturday, put it in a time capsule, and come back and look at it. And people would say, wow, how did the Guardians make the playoffs? Just rewatch Saturday's game. They scored the first 2 runs in the first inning because the ball drops between 3 Nationals defenders that converged on it in left center.
Is that when Manzardo got jammed on that inside fastball and he ended up blooping it out to
just a little excuse me bloop to left center, to shallow left center, and third baseman, shortstop, and left fielder all came together. Probably 1 or 2 of them could have caught it, but nobody did. The
broadcast had at their regular shortstop, I think it's Abrams.
If he was in there, he catches it.
He catches that ball.
Yeah, he probably does.
When we gonna just say Fry is good?
No, Fry's great.
When we gonna drop all the other stuff? Be like, oh, Fry, he's nice.
You know what's weird about that, G, is that when are we gonna say that this isn't a mirage?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
When you're getting on base at a 500 clip,
look at the OPS, Jay. It's the best in baseball
by a lot.
Yes.
And here's the funny thing. Like, again, if you would have asked who are the contenders to lead in OPS this year, he would have been somewhere below number 700.
Do you know who the other leaders in OPS are? Just so people have the context, and I know we always bring this stat up in particular, but the other top 5 guys in OPS.
Was Acuna up there before he got hurt?
I'm not sure, but on ESPN right now, this is 1 through 6. You know what? I'll go 1 through 8 because the other 7 are big names. 1's David Fry.
Yep.
2, Aaron Judge. 3, Juan Soto. 4, Marcell Ozuna of the Braves, who super good if you're not familiar with the Braves.
Very
super good. 5, Shohei Ohtani. 6, Kyle Tucker. 7, Gunnar Henderson, who leads Major League Baseball, or second now because Aaron Judge passed him in home runs. And 8's Mookie Betts. So this guy, David Fry, the guy they got for J.C. Mejia from the Brewers in a throwaway deal, is ahead of Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Marcell Ozuna, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, Gunnar Henderson, and Mookie Betts.
That's a great
for
stat,
the season
Mike.
in OPS.
Which of these is not like the other? And you know what's crazy is we've just now realized that he's got to be our everyday 4 or 5 hitter.
Yeah.
He's that good.
Yeah.
Got to be in the lineup every day.
Yeah.
That's how good he is.
And you know, I knew he was on something different. When you come in, people don't understand how hard it is to come in and pinch hit and get a hit.
Oh my God!
You've been sitting on the bench cold the whole doggone day, Jay. Your arms is tight. You've been cracking up. You've been laughing with your buddies. You've been laughing with your buddies eating seeds. Though you rapping, you talking to somebody else like you, and then you're up. It seems like you get to walk to the plate. It's 15 degrees colder, even though it's the summer.
Yeah.
And this guy not only does that, he comes in and hits home. I said he's seeing the ball. He's seeing the ball tremendous. The ball has to look like a grapefruit at this point because he's hitting the ball better than I've ever seen somebody who does not play regularly.
Speaking of hitting the ball, how does it feel to make your MLB debut and your first ever big
Daniel
league
Schneemann.
hit? Was it two-run
double?
2-run double. Like,
Yeah.
don't get no better than that.
It looked like he had his whole family in the game.
He was.
Which was awesome. He finished, I think, 1 for 3. Yeah, 1 for 3. But hey, it was his first pitch. I think they showed a stat yesterday on the game. I think it said the last 4 Guardians to make their major league debuts as hitters got base hits on their first pitch.
What?
I think that was the stat they showed.
Manzardo didn't.
He seen a fastball straight down the middle and he took it.
No, it wasn't, but I'm trying to think who else.
Was it
Jonathan Rodriguez.
Right, yeah,
Rodriguez did, didn't he?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure that was the stat, and I thought, wow, is that true?
It's the same question. We have not heard nothing about no Schneemann.
No.
Where did he come
from?
from?
He was one of the guys at spring training who was like, to be honest with you, in David Fry's camp.
Yeah.
Like he's going to fight for a spot. He can help you as a utility infielder. Did okay in camp, but they didn't keep him on the roster. And then they bring him up, and his first opportunity,
back to Fry.
he delivers.
I had Zach Meisel on with me Saturday when I was in for you. And he said something that really struck a chord. He said, you know who David Fry is? Stephen Vogt. A guy who wasn't highly recruited, didn't go to a big-time school, a guy that can play multiple positions in the major leagues that kind of caught fire later on in his career. And Vogt ended up being a 2-time All-Star. And here it is. You have this particular guy as your manager, and you see him having the success that he's having this year.
He's literally, right now, he's probably going to be an addition to the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Mike, here's my fear, okay? And I live in my fears because I'm a Cleveland sports fan. When does midnight strike? When does he turn back into not Cinderella, the fairy princess, but just the average Joe that everybody thought he was? I hope never. But I got to tell you, I'm not the only one that's skeptical about him being able to. He's clearly not going to maintain it at this pace. He's not going to have an OPS of 1.1 forever.
Yeah, that's not attainable.
He's not going to have a 500 on base percentage forever. He's not going to hit 355 for the rest of his career. There will be a regression to the norm. I hope his regression to the norm puts him in the category of a serviceable everyday player. I love him. I root for him. I just think it's a great story.
But Jay, you unlike any other sport, right? I think baseball lends itself to somebody having 365 days of just the best days of their life. Like you see it sometimes. Like you can pick around, right? 1 year, they all of a sudden
rookie of the year, and then injured, and then off the planet.
And so, can he keep it up? I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to keep it up through this season. Now, the point is, you have a large, track record of a bunch of stats that say he's this type of player, where he's just an average guy or a guy that's just going to fill in and platoon somewhere else. But, could he have a year? Sure. Like, it happens a lot. Like,
it does.
And, in basketball, like, you get a couple of games and it's like, okay, you had 30 or, it's like, the Lynn Sandy thing, right? All right, Jeremy Lin.
That's a very good point. Yeah, Jeremy Lin, for a minute, looked like he was going to change the sport.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the guy changed jerseys as much as most people change socks, and he's done.
He's finished. It's like, nah, we're not going to let you get that off. Like, it's hard. Like, you get hot a couple of games. But in baseball, Hey, listen, a bloop single is the same as a hard hit line in right field.
And he's been hitting everything hard, too.
Even if he comes back down to reality, I don't know if y'all familiar with the video game MLB The Show.
Yeah.
It's like he's playing the show right now on the
you're
rookie
right.
mode, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So if he can continue to
got
play
some
the show
cheat
on the
codes.
rookie mode for the rest of this year, I'm cool with it. Like, even if he comes back down to reality, what he's doing right now is a huge benefit. And when you have a manager like Steven Vogt that's becoming very creative in his lineups and finding different places to plug him in at, it just shows like his, the value of importance that he has to this team.
I wonder if there's any thought or conversation with the Guardians about making him the everyday catcher, because right now, Bo Naylor, I'm just not sure what's going on. I think he's better than what he's showing, but he's not hitting. He's a hole in the lineup, in a lineup that otherwise only has one or two holes. But, when you throw him in there with Freeman and with Rocchio, that's a third of your lineup, and that's too much. You can't have a hole in your lineup where you could throw away 3 innings. If you put those guys back to back to back, those are easy innings for pitchers. And I'm just wondering if Steven Vogt, who knows the position as well as anyone, is giving any thought at all to just rubber stamping Fry as his everyday catcher. And I don't know if you trade Bo Naylor. I don't know if you send him to the minors. I don't know, but I'm just not seeing what I need to out of him.
I don't want to get his name wrong. The kid that made his MLB debut. Is it Schneemann?
Schneemann.
What about him playing shortstop and moving on from Rocchio?
I don't know. Again, I think, to be honest, in spring training, Rocchio kind of battled with Schneemann and among others, and he won the battle. Uh-huh. So I don't know that Schneemann's going to be this, certainly 3 at-bats isn't going to tell us anything. I don't know that he's going to be an everyday starter. Like, I don't think you can catch lightning in a bottle twice in the same year. Although in 22 they did. Everybody they brought up had these miraculous seasons, and you're like, wow, this organization is deep with talent. We hit on David Fry. I can't imagine Schneemann's going to be another one.
Well, the reason I said that is because from everything I've heard, I was listening to Bull and Zach on the Ultimate Guardian show this morning, and Zach was alluding to the point to where, this is a good utility guy, a guy that can play second base, shortstop,
he can,
and third base, and possibly spell your guys with the amount of off days that we have coming up. He also alluded to the fact that the Guardians are about to go against a lot of right-handed pitchers.
They are.
And so bringing him up right now and getting him some at-bats will help. I don't know. It's just like I heard Bull make the big bold prediction of Rocchio possibly being an all-star. This dude has been a major disappointment. So I'm just wondering if this is a guy that you...
Bull said that not recently. He
said this a while ago.
Right. That was a bold prediction.
And based on like what it's looked like, I'm just wondering if that's a change that can be made. Not as an everyday guy, but
he's not the long-term answer there.
Jimenez, didn't he used to play shortstop?
He could move to short, but the problem is you've got a platinum glove winner and 2-time Gold Glove winner at second. Like, do you mess with that? Like, he's been so good at second. Now, Steven Vogt he is a master at creating lineups that look different every day, and he said platoon to him is a bad word. He doesn't like that word. He doesn't like to platoon guys. But what I've noticed he does is he seems to get everybody regular reps, and it hasn't hurt the team yet. Mm-hmm. He's not putting the same lineup out there every day like your Yankees and Dodgers and these teams that are, steamrolling their way to divisional titles. He's doing it in an unconventional way. I don't know how long he can continue to do it, but I like it. And you mentioned a very smart thing when you said that one of the things that's most impressive about David Fry is he's doing it in some cases, get up and hit. He's cold. One day he's playing here. One day he's in left. One day he's behind home plate. One day he's a DH. He hasn't had that steady rhythm, but he's produced no matter where they've put him. That's a testament to Steven Vogt getting the most out of his guys.
Real quick, before we move on to anything else, we spent 20 minutes on the Guardians and haven't mentioned Steven Kwan yet.
You're right.
Who made his return to the lineup on Friday. He went 4 of 8 over the weekend. He was hitting .355 before hitting the IL. Comes back, hits .500 in his first series back. What'd you see from Steven Kwan? Doesn't look like he missed a step at all in his return to the lineup for the Guardians.
The only thing that really stood out to me, aside from him being great, as always, his first at-bat, I think, was a strikeout. And he had, at the time, the longest stretch between strikeouts of anybody in the major leagues. I think it was 74 at-bats that he had not struck out. he came up in his first at bat, he struck out, and I thought, "Ooh, that's not."
He got caught looking on a pretty
Then
good pitch
yesterday, he looked at a 3. I think it was 3-2. It was. I almost think that he didn't pick up the baseball. It was an absolute center cut fastball.
He pulled a Frankie.
And he just looked at it. He did pull a Frankie. And I was like, wow. So as great as he was, 4 for 8, 3 for 4 in his return, he had 2 at-bats that were really atypical for Kwan in that he struck out. And the looking, he never does that.
It's funny, like, there are people who have, and we talk about strike zones and umpires. There are people who are aggressive at the plate and really don't take pitches. And sometimes when they take them, the umpire's like, hold on, let me second guess this.
Everybody was looking like, what?
Was this really a strike?
If you took that must have been a ball. You don't do that.
That's not you. And then later in the year, they get the benefit of their doubt. Like anything on the corners, they're like, yeah, that's
you're right.
Kwan.
And pitchers the same thing.
Yeah, right.
When pitchers are pitching around the plaque and they're hitting the edges.
The first
get that call.
The first one
Sometimes
Jay
they
is
get
talking about. The first one Jay is talking about when he first came back, it was on the corner, and the umpire kind of hesitated to call it a strike because he couldn't believe he took it.
What was crazy to me was on yesterday his strikeout. If you take the box, that's the strike zone, and you cross it, that pitch was right in the middle.
Yeah,
it was an absolute center cut fastball that Kwan normally jumps all over. The only thing I can think of
got fooled.
Is that he got fooled. He was looking for something that he didn't get, and he got something he wasn't looking for, and he had to do the walk of shame.
Yeah, because when they talk about it in like mad science or baseball science. They're like you got like 0.02 of a second to decide whether or not you're going to swing or not. And sometimes it takes just your brain to register what pitch it is. And by the time it's there, you're like, listen, I wasn't swinging at that. I have made my mind up.
He wasn't looking for it, yeah. But kudos to him. He had a great return. Now it gets interesting because now the Royals come in. Now the Royals have had a bad, really, 2 weeks. They are, I think, 4-6 in their last 10. The problem is they had a walk-off win yesterday. Mm-hmm. Which sucked because it looked like the Guardians were not going to lose a game. Mm-hmm. And they stayed 4 games out because the Royals actually walked off their win. I think it was against San Diego in the 9th inning. And that sucks because now they're coming into the 3-game set with – and there is a day off. They don't play today, so some of that momentum will cool. But I would have loved it if they had to come in here 5 out, 3-7 in their last 10, but this series is going to be a precursor to what the rest of the season is.
Let me ask you a question about tomorrow's game. That pitcher Lugo, for Kansas City, is this the toughest pitcher that they've seen so far this season?
Necessarily the toughest pitcher they've seen, but he's amongst them. He's got great stuff. It's going to be a test. There's no question about it. He is having the kind of Chris Sale is doing something very similar, although he got beat up Saturday.
He got rocked in
He got rocked hard Saturday. But Sale's having a similar season to this. And I think, didn't Sale pitch in one of the games against the Guardians?
Yeah, they faced Sale.
So I think maybe, but it's right there between Lugo and Sale, I think. But look at his numbers. I mean, these numbers are, that's why crazy. Kansas City is where they are. I mean, he's 8 games over 500 by himself.
Yeah,
I don't have high hopes
and the
for the
ERA,
opener.
All the numbers for Lugo are out of this world this year.
This looked like a box score from like 1986, 86, 87.
Yeah, or 68 with Bob Gibson.
Like where everybody back in the day when they had 20-game winners all the time. Everybody had no more.
That's insane. He's having a Cy Young caliber season for sure. He's probably with Chris Sale 1-2, however you look at it. I can't think of a pitcher they faced that's having a better year than these guys.
I would flip it around too. Like I wonder if he's went up against an offense that's been this hot.
Well, I mean,
they faced Flaherty, who's having an awesome year in Detroit too.
Yeah, what's his record though? He's not. I don't think he's.
No, his record's not good, but his advanced stats are really.
Yeah, what's his ERA?
2.46. So
yeah, I mean these guys are in the ones. Sale and Lugo are in the ones.
I meant to say this.
But you're right. He's a good arm too. I don't know. I mean, when you've got 10 decisions, and you're 9-1. Like, I'd like to see what his one loss was. Was it 3-2?
Also,
Was it a
Tanner
close
Hawk
game?
of Boston, who they faced
He's having
twice. He has a 1.85 ERA.
Yeah, he's having a great
it's right
year.
up there. To answer your question,
It's
he's
right
having
up
as good
there.
a season as
Yeah.
any pitcher in
Okay.
baseball this year.
I was sitting there, and I going back to Fry and Bo Naylor. Like, I wonder if there's a little bit of this. You know, when I play, and you're traditionally a good hitter, right? If you're struggling and you see somebody on your team that is just not traditionally been a good hitter,
Right.
and they're killing the ball, you get up to the plate and you start judging, second guessing, like, hold on, what?
How is this guy
How
doing
is
that?
this?
Yeah.
He ain't never been no hitter, and then you get up there and you foul off the good pitches. You're swinging at stuff out of the strike zone. You're not being disciplined, or you hit the ball hard and it goes right to somebody. You think it's a little bit of, Bo Naylor's like, hey, I was coming into this season. I was supposed to be the everyday catcher. This was supposed to be my year. And David Fry can't miss right now. So now I'm going to the plate pressing a little bit. Like,
Well,
I got to get this thing going.
To your point, G, it absolutely has to add pressure to Bo Naylor, because you're acutely aware of what your backup is doing at all times.
Yep.
You know, if you're the everyday shortstop, but there's a guy that plays maybe every third or fourth day behind you, not at your position, but he's playing somewhere, and this guy's hitting the ball all over the yard, first in baseball in one of the most important categories, and you're hitting $180. What's Naylor's average right now?
Give me a second, I'll pull it up.
You're aware of that, and that adds another layer of pressure. He's trying to figure out this major league thing. I think defensively he has.
I mean,
He's hitting 173, by the
but
way.
to your point,
that's
though,
not
Jay,
sustainable.
to your point, being top 3 in pitch framing is not enough to keep that position.
So talk about that, because that was something that we'd mentioned in our chat.
Yeah, it's like he's a dude. I think he's Bull City's number 1 in pitch framing. He's probably like 1 through 3 right now, and defensively, he's one of the best catchers in baseball.
As a result, did you see the tweet that I think Bull sent out yesterday, or a text?
Jason sent it, yeah.
Jason sent it. It's basically, I call them one calls, meaning WON, one calls, mean that you won the call. So every pitch is either a ball or strike based on the automated pitch count, strike count. And they are like, I think it's 94 one calls on the plus side. So what does that mean? That means that pitches that are actually outside the strike zone are being called strikes.
Yep.
It's not a coincidence. They are so far ahead of the team that's second. I think the second team in one calls had like 27. So it was like 94 for the Guardians, and then I think the Yankees were next at 27. My numbers may be off a little bit. But I replied to the text chain, that's a skill set. Stephen Vogt, being a catcher, has done a wonderful job of teaching all of these guys how to better frame pitches. It's taking a pitch that was caught out of the zone and pulling it in as you're catching it, making it look like one movement.
So I got the numbers, Jay.
It's a skill set.
The Guardians have 94. The Yankees and Mariners both have 71, so they're 23
Oh, okay.
ahead.
I thought there was a bigger gap.
And then the big drop happens from
Okay.
those two. It goes from 94, 71, 71 to the Pirates at 32.
Okay, where was Stephen Vogt last year?
Seattle.
Yeah.
And they're tied for second.
This is Stephen Vogt. This is Stephen Vogt. And here's the thing. When you look at 94 calls, okay, it doesn't seem like, over, what have they played, 50-some games? It doesn't seem like a lot, but if that's 2 a game, and they're in critical spots, and you're getting a called third strike that's a ball 4, I mean, you're changing innings. You're changing games. And that's Stephen Vogt. And Bo Naylor is great at it. They're all great at it. Even David Fry has done a good job, but Austin Hedges is tremendous as well at it. It's the little things that they're doing that's helping them. And honestly, I don't care if Bo Naylor is 100+ on the one call stat. 173. I love Bo, too.
Yeah, I do, too.
I love him as a player, defensively, and as a person. He's a great person. I want him to succeed in the worst way, but I don't know how long they keep him up here, because you could be compounding the damage. You're drilling into his head every day he's not a major league hitter. That's not a good message to hear every day. So I don't know if they send him down and try him in AAA for a while and let David catch every day for a month and see what happens. I'm not sure. But it doesn't seem like he's progressing the way he needs to progress.
We're going to take a pivot, talk a little Browns. If you want more Guardians talk, Bull and Zach did an Ultimate Guardian show this morning. 34 more minutes of unfiltered, nothing but Guardians content. It is the best Guardian show on the interweb, so make sure you guys check it out if you want to hear even more about your first place Cleveland Guardians as they get ready to take on the Kansas City Royals starting tomorrow night in a massive AL Central showdown. So OTAs have been going on over in Berea, and the Browns are doing what the Browns do. Actually, they're out golfing today, so they're not doing what they always do. But Jameis Winston was asked about his relationship and his experiences so far with Ken Dorsey. And while answering the question, he may have let a little bit of a secret slip. Let's take a listen.
Most important thing I learned is that, Miami Hurricanes aren't that bad. But really, I've really enjoyed his coaching presence. What we do on the field in terms of drill work has been fine work. One of my favorite quarterback coaches that worked with Peyton Manning, Clyde Christensen, Mike Bajakian, they always worked on the feet. And I'm just so happy that is what he's emphasizing with his feet, with his timing, and also him installing the plays, him calling the plays. Man, he's definitely been in this position. It seems as if he's been in this position before, and I'm just happy that we're able to communicate. And it's very important to me because this is a new offense for me. So us communicating, me continuing to learn, and him being tough on us and challenging us to get better, challenging us to be quicker and faster, it's truly been a blessing.
Oops.
Did something slip there that maybe should not have?
Yes.
That's my question.
Two things. Number one, for a guy who's going to draw a nice paycheck someday as a color analyst
or
on NFL games.
Or a motivational speaker.
Whatever.
Or
his second life, he will be a speaker. I think he's got an unbelievable future as a color commentator for live NFL games. He is as animated and as well-spoken as you would want your backup quarterback to be. The crazy thing to me, though, is for somebody who is such a good speaker, they usually have a gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper only lets the good stuff out and the stuff that's supposed to come out. But he unofficially announced that Ken Dorsey is, in fact, not just the play caller for the Cleveland Browns, but he is the full-fledged offensive coordinator who is installing the offense.
So Wednesday or Thursday when I did the Ultimate 216 show, I talked to Spencer German.
Yeah.
Saturday I talked to Cameron Justice. And they both alluded to the fact that Ken Dorsey's voice has been very loud, been very dominant, and the install pretty much has gone through him. I asked specifically who was relying the communication, to the quarterback and who was doing most of the communication during 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills. And they both told me it was Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, he is not Alex Van Pelt.
So I think that when we go back, and we heard Jason allude to this a lot, that Kevin Stefanski don't have a stranglehold on the play calling. He would be willing to relinquish it if he came across somebody that he can trust. If you hear Kevin Stefanski talk about Ken Dorsey, he talks about his experience. He talks about him being a collegiate quarterback, the success he had there. He talks about, what he did in Carolina with Cam Newton, most recently what he did in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And then you allude to the fact to where his last full season in Buffalo as the OC 2022, Buffalo has 7 guys in the course of the season have 100-yard receiving games. And so,
wasn't he there to start 23?
Yeah,
also?
but this was just his last full season.
Yeah,
and so the point I'm making is, he has his hands all over this Cleveland Browns offense, and I think Kevin Stefanski has a guy on the offensive side of the ball now that he trusts just as much as he does Jim Schwartz on the defensive side.
Man, I told you. Oh, my goodness. G-Bush, you're being knee-jerk reaction. You don't know who's going to call the plays. I sure do know who's going to call the plays. I told you what was going to happen. They brought this man in here, and they said, listen, when they tell you, hey, your boy got to go. your best man, he was in your wedding. He helped you move here. Y'all ate a pizza afterwards, drank a beer. Matter of fact, he was on that deck with you and your father.
He was? He was that close?
He was that close. Guess what? When they say you got to get rid of your man, this is all we needed to know. We know Dorsey was out here calling these plays. Listen, stop. Jimmy Haslam he already pointed to it. But I'll give Stefanski credit. Stefanski is one of the guys that, like, he's like a boss at the CIA, right? He does a good job of everybody. He's like, listen, guys, we have, assets in Russia. We have assets in China. We're trying to not blow anybody's cover. And Kevin Stefanski does it by the book. But you got Jameis Winston, and he excited. He excited that you got this new blood. He genuinely is a person who loves it. Then he tells Deshaun Watson, hey, listen, we're going one day at a time with the shoulder. I'm ready to play. I'm playing every single game. I'm ready to go now. If we had a game tomorrow, Deshaun Watson 4 is back. He looking around like, well, Joe, shut up. I'm trying to play the game right now. You'll keep messing it up but, when you got a new offense, that's the excitement level, though. Because there are people who are really excited about it, right? Like, they should just take the page out of Amari Cooper's page or Nick Chubb and don't be seen. But when you getting plays called in and it's innovative, and you like, this fit my skill set. You come off like, oh, this is great. I got to see it. But yeah, we all knew that. We knew that.
He is like a kid at Christmas. I mean, he's thrilled. I like how he started it. It proved that Miami Hurricanes aren't all that bad. Obviously, Ken Dorsey was a Miami Hurricane, and Jameis played at Florida State, heated rivals. But I don't know where Kevin Stefanski is on all this. And that's what I need to know. And I don't mean public-facing Kevin Stefanski.
Right.
No, I think I get where you're going.
I mean, sitting at the dinner table with his wife, is he saying,
it's cool.
I'm not good with this. I feel like I've been demoted. This is my thing. Remember, even though he's a two-time coach of the year, two-time NFL coach of the year in 4 years, we've had panel discussions where we've asked bluntly, does he have to give up the play calling? Because when it's been good, it's been great. But when it's been bad, it's been head-scratching bad. And so all through that, when there were questions to him about, have you thought about giving up the play calling, coach? Mm-hmm. What was his response? No, I'm not. I love it. I love calling plays. I can be good at this. I have been good at this. I'm going to continue to call the plays. So what happened overnight in a year when they made the playoffs with 5 different starting quarterbacks and overachieved beyond anybody's wildest expectation in a division riddled with good teams? What happened overnight where he woke up one day and said, yeah, I'm good with this. I'm done with the play calling?
Well, think about it. We talked about this as it pertained to the GMs, right, about the growth as a general manager. And I think first of all, Kevin Stefanski was a first-time head coach when he took over. And so in his 4 or 5 years of being the Cleveland Browns head coach, you see the growth. You see the growth in the nuances within the little things, right? And he's becoming more of a CEO type, overseeing the entire football team. There's nothing written in stone that says he's going to give up the play calling. But I do remember it's on the wall. Like, I remember hearing interviews where he talked about, if I can have somebody I really trusted,
but that was after Alex Van Pelt was let go.
But he said this beforehand.
I don't remember him ever saying that beforehand.
This is not the first.
Because why would you say that? I mean,
I'm just telling you what I've heard. He said it on the King Carmen and Anthony Lima show last year before this previous season even started.
But doesn't that step on the toes of his current offensive coordinator?
I just feel like this.
I don't have faith in you.
I just feel like this. It's not something that he's really quick to give away, but it's not something that he has a tie to.
Why is there no contract
he's not willing
extension?
To? Wish we knew.
In the words of the great Jay-Z, sometimes you dumb down your flow to double your dollars. You saying all these creative lines and people's like, we're just going over your head. But when you get to a point where you adapt and say, look, he sees the thing. And I always said this, and I asked Aditi every time she come on here. I said, maybe there's a reason why he don't got a contract. It's because he don't want it yet. Because he's going to show you in a different way, I'm not just a one-trick pony. Yeah, I was calling these plays, right? And I'm 2-time coach of the year. Let me show y'all that I could do it a different way. Now I'm the liaison. I'm the CEO.
The true CEO.
I'm the true. Now, when I get another job, guess what I want? I want to pick the parts too. I want to be in the draft room too.
Well, if he, by all indications so far, his first head coaching job has been a wild success. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, twice he's been the coach of the year. So out of 32 coaches and 4 seasons, he's nabbed that award twice. So it's been a runaway success. A lot of coaches don't get a second chance. He will have a second chance. whether he leaves here on his own accord or he's let go, Kevin Stefanski will be on the short list of guys that will be looked at for every job that comes open in the NFL. He knows that. I'm just wondering, and again, no intel. I'm just going on human nature and human response. When you are told by an organization that we're going to take what you did and we're going to give that to someone else, there's a million different ways you can explain that. We want you to focus on the whole team. Mm-hmm. We want you to be as involved with the defense as you've been with the offense. It's time now that you wear the CEO hat. We know you can call plays, and you're still going to have a hand in that. But we're going to bring someone from the outside. You're going to fire your buddy, and we're going to bring someone from the outside, and we're going to let him have a shot. Human nature being what it is, that's wounded pride. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. Unless this happened where Kevin went to management and said, I'm good with the play calling thing. And I don't think that happened. And everybody I've talked to does not think that happened. We think that the Alex Van Pelt to Ken Dorsey transition was forced upon Kevin Stefanski. And if that's true, Kevin has wounded pride. He's a human being. This is something that he wanted to do, that he took pride in doing. Twice the NFL coaches have named him as their best. So all of that being considered, and this lingering piece that there's no contract extension. We were told after the season it's coming. We were told in February it's coming. We were told at the draft combine it's coming. We were told at the draft it's coming. Now we've gone through OTAs, it's coming. Oftentimes when a season starts, players in particular, I don't know so much about coaches, but a lot of times when this last contract year lingers up until the season, then oftentimes you've seen players say, that's it, I'm done. I'm not talking extension, I'm focusing on the season. If we get that, and I don't think we're going to, I do think he's going to be signed to an extension. I hope. Because if they don't, that tells me Kevin is wounded. And when your pride is wounded, what do you want to do? You want to show whoever didn't bet on you that they bet on the wrong pony.
Let me play devil's advocate a little bit, because I kind of agree with a little bit of what G said. This can be a little bit of Kevin Stefanski saying, hey, let me show you.
Sure.
Right? But
That's
I think
what I'm saying here.
I went into the end of season thinking, okay, Jimmy low-key forced his hand when it came to Alex Van Pelt. But the more I heard him talk, the more as I got away from,
Well, understand, Kevin is the ultimate team soldier, though.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, okay? At the end of the season, I went into that offseason with the assumption that the reason Alex Van Pelt got fired is because Jimmy Haslam told him, if you don't fire AVP, I'm going to fire you. Don't know that to be fact. This is an assumption.
I don't think Kevin was ever threatened.
This is an assumption. I'm playing devil's advocate. The further I get removed from that, the more that I'm starting to believe that, you know, maybe Kevin's voice is heard louder than we think it is. Maybe Kevin has more say-so than we think. Maybe this was an executive decision made by Kevin Stefanski to move on from Alex Van Pelt. And maybe because Kevin Stefanski is at a certain place in his head coaching tenureship to where, you know what, I want to oversee my team and not just the office. And I think so. I believe that. I believe that.
Wow,
because
really?
I honestly God believe that.
I think what it is it's, you know, we got to forget he comes from, you know, Harvard and Ivy League schools, right? And there's been studies that show that, you know, in younger generations, they value the opportunity to move and shake and go do different stuff. In older generations, you may have wanted to stay somewhere for 30 years, get a gold watch and retire. Well, when we started to figure out that, you know, responsibilities, power, and wages go up when you do switch jobs every 2 to 3 years. Sure. Because when you switch those jobs every 2 to 3 years, you're not leveraging what you've done in the past to get what you want in the future.
Yeah.
And unless you have that leverage, and unless you're betting on yourself in a contract year, so think about it like this. He did it one way, and he goes, okay, well, I did it that way. If I could prove that not only you could bring in guys, and I'm a collaborator now, and we do well, and the Browns make the playoffs, make a deep run, now his contract is up. So now think about...
Well, he's Joe Flacco if he does that. Like, if he makes a deep playoff run betting on himself, why would he come back?
And so you'd have to give him power. You have to give him overpicking players.
Yes.
He'd want to be a person that was a major figure in the organization, right? Yep. And so sometimes he's looking at it, and if you're smart, you're looking at it like, hey, it's a win-win. It might be a little nerve-wracking. I don't have any security, but I already got 2 Coach of the Years backing me up anyway.
I agree with that. I agree with that. He's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
I think he's a quietly proud guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's extremely humble. He would never stand in front of a microphone and say anything that would remotely put the Haslams in a bad way. He's a great employee. He's too smart for that. What's interesting to me, and I've always wondered how football people deal with this, because these 32 NFL head coaches, not everybody in that group, but for the most part, these are the highest football IQ human beings on the planet. And you know what they have to put up with every day?
From guys like us?
Rich people who were picked last in gym class telling them what to do.
Right, yeah, like.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I've always believed that vocal owners are the worst owners and involved owners, they believe, wrongly, that the knowledge that they've accumulated through a lifetime of running successful businesses will transfer somehow into football IQ. That is the most unconnected, connect the dots that you could possibly have. Oh, you were great at running a truck stop. I bet you'd be great at making football decisions.
Yeah.
No. What great owners do is find people that are great in the roles that they need them to play. You pay them well, and you get the hell out of the way. You know who I just described? Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft wasn't telling Bill Belichick what quarterback to play.
In your opinion, do you believe the Haslams have grown to that because they?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't.
I think like not even a little bit, Jay.
I think they've no. Okay, that's a fair question. If there's a continuum, they've moved along that continuum, but they're still far too close to the meddling owners than they are to the Rooneys, to the Krafts. Look at Jerry Jones. He's as involved as an owner can get. You know what has to drive every head coach that he's ever hired crazy? Is that before the media comes into the Dallas Cowboys locker room, Jerry Jones is there first, and he holds court. Do you know how dismissive and, quite frankly, offensive that has to be to the coach? You don't even know what he said. So now the media comes in, and they say, Jerry just said that there's got to be changes made at quarterback. What do you have to say to that? What? I mean, you're thrown on the spot with a pop quiz, and now you're asked to respond to what your boss thinks. The way good organizations work, and Jerry, everybody will look at Jerry and say, yeah, but look at all the success he had early. He had success early because he landed one of the all-time great motivating coaches in Jimmy Johnson, and he pulled off one of the all-time heists in the history of the NFL.
I think you just said it.
But what happened? Jerry screwed all that up when he fired Jimmy Johnson, who was a longtime high school and college friend, and brought in Barry Switzer, and they had a little bit of success. But after that, they've had the same success in the playoffs as the Cleveland Browns.
You got to look at it this way. When you playing, it's like the Game of Thrones. Like you're playing this game, and you have to be very smart. You have to be articulate. You have to be calculated to deal with some of these owners. The guys who take those positions for the Cowboys and for the Browns, when you got those type owners, you got to operate a different way. What Kevin Stefanski does is really good because he's disarming. He comes off as a guy who doesn't take himself too seriously. He's even keeled. He doesn't get too high or low. So basically, every time you got an owner that runs hot, he's able to diffuse a lot of it. Now, here's another thing what helps him out, because they got Andrew Berry, right? If there's a lot of times where you got the infighting between the GM and the coach and they jousting.
Yeah.
In this case, I think they lucked up and they got 2 guys that are really good that kind of.
He's a good buffer between
a good buffer
himself and Haslam.
Now, so here's the thing. Coming up now, he's making his decision and evaluation just like they are, right? That's what happens when you hire good people. Because when your contract's up, Good employees are going to make an evaluation to say, well, let me evaluate you and see if I really want to continue to be here.
You just hit that is the crux of this discussion. It might not be Kevin has to do enough to keep Jimmy.
Yeah.
It might simply be Jimmy has to do enough to keep Kevin.
I just got to give.
I don't know that Jimmy can acquiesce.
I got to give Jimmy. I got to give Haslam's credit where it's due. I think we are a long way away from Joe Banner, Ray Farmer, from Rob Trubisky, from Pat Shermer, etc. This is the most stabilization I've seen in the Cleveland Browns organization since 1999.
Correct.
Right, and I think that's him learning as an owner as he's grown. Like, is he still vocal? Is he involved? Yeah, but me personally, this is just me. I'd rather have somebody that's involved versus somebody that delegated that task to somebody else. And I'll give you an example.
I disagree.
You know I'm a NASCAR guy, right?
Right.
Stewart Haas Racing announced this week they're closing their doors,
They're
right?
done.
Kevin Harvick used to drive for Stewart Haas Racing and said, in his opinion, the reason why they got here is because the owners of the team chose to empower other people,
right?
And they was hands off.
Well,
and when you have something like this, you need to be hands on in order for it to be successful.
Good point. However, when Stewart Haas had its most success, Tony Stewart was still involved in the daily operations. Tony Stewart got to a point where he said, I'm sitting on millions of dollars.
And the moment he stepped away.
Now watch. Because I agree with you.
Yeah.
In theory, what you're saying is what I'm saying. If Peyton Manning was running this organization and owned the team, I need his influence. I need it. Because his football IQ is higher than everybody else's. If Tony Stewart is part of the ownership group, I need him. I need him day to day. I need him making the decisions of what kind of lug nuts we're going to use. Because he knows. But what happened to the organization of Stewart Haas, when Tony stepped back, the thing started to fall apart. And now they're a shell of what they were 20 years ago when this team was winning everything.
Yeah.
And so, in part, you're making my point. If your owner is Tony Stewart, I need you. And when they didn't have him anymore, they floundered.
Really quickly, who do you like? Who do you like better, Randy Lerner or Haslam?
No question, Jimmy Haslam.
Okay.
No question. I'm not saying worst owner ever.
No. I'm just saying two different styles, right?
Two different styles, and even to your point, I never questioned Haslam's desire to win. This guy wants to win as bad as anybody in the league. Sometimes you can want to win so badly, Jerry Jones, that your judgment gets clouded. Now, I will give credit where credit is due, and you are absolutely right. Jimmy Haslam and D. Haslam have grown on this continuum where they're no longer hiring Chud and Lerner
Shermer
and
who was his name? Ray Farmer as GM. You had Joe Banner as GM.
Now, what I think he's done is, in making a lot of mistakes through process of elimination, and I don't want to say lucked up, but what I'll say is he has learned that these are pivotal hires, and you've got to get them right. And maybe I need some outside help and a steering committee, and I need some outside help because clearly I can't pick head coaches.
I
can't pick general managers.
And you know this too. Andrew Berry was here before, and I think when Jimmy Haslam seen him walk out that door, he knew that was a mistake.
I agree with you.
So when he got him back, he kind of like, you know what? I got a guy. Let me step aside.
Right.
I got somebody I trust in place.
Now, and again, all this is supposition because we'll never know. Haslam isn't going to tell us, and Stefanski damn sure isn't going to tell us. So all this is supposition. But what I'm supposing is this transition from Van Pelt as the figurehead OC, but Kevin calling the plays, to where we are now with a new play caller and a new play installer. Jameis Winston said Dorsey's installing his offense. This is not the Kevin Stefanski offense. All of that as kind of remote evidence leads me to the conclusion that Jimmy is the one that decided after last year, I know what it looks like, I know what I want it to look like, and this ain't it. Now, unfortunately for Jimmy, Kevin was named Coach of the Year, and they made the playoffs with a roster that was a playoff-ready roster without the quarterback, and he just plugged and played every quarterback, and they made it work. To me, that was their strength last year.
So let me ask you this. If that's the case, how you see it, right? Because me and you see it differently.
Yeah.
If how you see it is how it went down, if you're Kevin Stefanski, do you even want the contract extension?
That's what I'm telling you, Earl.
Well, do you want it?
No.
There it is.
And here might be why. Kevin's a smart guy. He knows more about football. He's forgot more about football than Jimmy's ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And he was told by a rich guy, this is what we're going to do. And you're going to like it. And you're going to perform. And you're going to... And if I'm in my theory, Kevin, when the doors are shut and there's no microphones and it's just he and his wife, I'd love to know, is he saying, I don't know that I want to move forward with a guy that's going to make major decisions that affects my future, and I'm not considered in those decisions. I want to go somewhere where I control my own fate, and I believe I'm good enough to do it. So, now look, all that being said, by 2 o'clock today, we could have word that the extension is done and all is good. But why is it taking so long? It's taking so long because someone has a reservation. If both sides completely agree on the terms and the rules moving forward, this contract would have been signed.
See, the way that you think it is scaring me, because if Kevin Stefanski is going through this, then I wonder what the hell is going through Andrew Berry's mind.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think they finally got it right in the GM and the coach.
Yeah.
My hope now is that they don't screw it up. You got it right. Don't mess this up.
And both men have grown tremendously in their roles.
And so, you know what? Whether it's here or somewhere else, both are going to have long careers in the NFL.
I hope it's here. I really hope it's here.
I want it to be here. And you know what? I hope all of my crazy theories are just that, crazy theories. And tomorrow, Kevin and Jimmy are standing in a podium, and it's kumbaya, and we got our deal. That's what I hope.
I knew he had a strong relationship with Mike Prefer, and once somebody else came available, he moved on.
No. Prefer was fired.
Well, that's what I'm saying. When somebody else better became available,
I don't even know that
he swiftly moved on.
Yeah, but
Kevin swiftly
do you
fired
think
him.
Kevin Stefanski fired Prefer?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
I'm not sure of that either.
I do. What you think?
It's Prefer.
But look how loyal Kevin is.
I guess I'm using that as an example is because this is how much I think he's grown as a coach. The moment that he identified a much better special teams coordinator, he fired the dude that was here. And so to me,
I'd love to know the behind
I just
the
believe,
scenes workings of that.
in my theory, I think this is the same course of action he took with AVP. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Speaking of
We'll
head
never know
coaches
because
and head coaching contracts, that brings us to our next topic, which we'll get to after a quick word from Game Time. If you're looking to get tickets to the NBA Finals, if you want to go to Dallas or Boston, you know how cool it would be to be at a Game 1 of an NBA Finals? Well, you can make that happen and turn your dream into a reality with Game Time. It has the lowest ticket prices on the interweb, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee makes Game Time the best and easiest way to buy tickets online. It takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets, too, which leaves you with more mental space to find the best seats and capitalize on their priority last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing. You get a panoramic view from your seat on the app before you buy, and their lowest price guarantee makes sure Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the lower ticket online, which, spoiler alert, you won't. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. The Cavs have officially requested and been granted access to interview two more head coaching candidates, Chris Quinn from the Miami Heat and Johnnie Bryant from the New York Knicks. They've already previously been granted interview access with James Borrego and Kenny Atkinson. And Earl, I want to start with you because I know Chris Quinn is currently your top choice to be the Cavs' next head coach. He is officially interviewing for the job. In your opinion, what makes Quinn the right guy for the job, and what would he bring to this Cleveland organization?
The reason why I think
if he is the hire?
I'm sorry, Mike. The reason why I think Chris Quinn is the absolute 100% correct choice to be the Cleveland Cavaliers' next head coach is because he is a specialty in player development. He comes from a championship system. He has experience around superstar players. He is a former player in the NBA. What does most players that play a professional sport love in a coach? Somebody that they can relate to that's been on, say, a gridiron, right? This dude is Eric Spoelstra's top assistant. 10 years with Eric Spoelstra. He played for Miami, played for Spo, played for Pat Riley. This is a dude that's been around Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh. He has a system. He comes from a championship system. He knows, like, he's one of the key guys when it comes to player development. He's somebody that's gotten a ringing endorsement from everybody inside that organization. And I think that if the Cleveland Cavaliers continue with the trend that we've seen when they hire head coaches, Mike Brown was the first-time head coach, and he coached LeBron. So don't tell me that Chris Quinn, as a first-time head coach, is not good enough to coach Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and whoever else is on his team. I think this dude is the right hire. I think that he's somebody that can galvanize the troops. I think he's somebody that impact change. I think he's everything that you look for in a coach. He's audible ready. He knows how to communicate. He's honest. Like, he has everything that you're looking for. I think Chris Quinn is the hire.
There's one thing missing. Who's his agent?
I'm not sure.
Who is the agency representing the two candidates who have already been granted permission to interview with the Cavaliers?
CAA.
Who is the agency that represents Donovan Mitchell?
CAA.
So you're telling me there's a connection. I need to know this. And this is what the Cavs need to know. And this, by the way, is my theory as to why this coaching search is going to go into the summer. What does Donovan Mitchell think of him? That's it. Because you're right. If you're looking at the blind resumes of all three, even though he doesn't have NBA head coaching experience, he is a seed from the Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra tree. Mm-hmm. The soil here is fertile. Look at the roster. The soil is fertile. You give me a seed that came from the Riley and Spoelstra tree, the lineage is pretty good. He's done a great job, and you're right. Everybody that I've reached out to says, oh, this guy's if not in Cleveland, somewhere. And you know what scares me about that? He could be the next Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have hired Kyle Shanahan as our head coach. And we've had to watch him go implement his genius somewhere else. And I don't want that to happen with Chris Quinn. But I'm very worried about the CAA, the lack of a CAA connection. Now, I don't know. Maybe he is represented by CAA. The fact that I haven't heard that or been able to find that out tells me he's probably not.
So, I like. First of all, let me just say, I like him too. I like Chris Quinn. I like his resume. I like the fact that he has some sort of offense. He comes from a structured type team. But when you look at when you're going to hire a head coach after you let JB Bickerstaff go, right? One of the main things that we talk about is timing. Are you at the point of your career where it matches what the Cavs organization is at, right? You look at Ty Lue. Ty Lue didn't have any head coaching experience. However, his time and where he was at in his life matched where the Cavs were at the time, and they were ready for that type of voice. My thing is, we got with the JB Bickerstaff, and we've heard rumblings of people saying JB had to go. They didn't like certain things, and certain times you may need a different voice, and that different voice you might not want that voice to be the same similar voice as the one that you kind of have. Like for me, I want a veteran. I want somebody who knows how to talk to these dudes, a veteran that has done it before, and a veteran who can come into that locker room and say, nah, Donovan, we running it this way. And him actually respect him. Because and I'm not saying that they're going to disrespect Chris Quinn, but for me, it's Kenny Atkinson. That's my number one choice. I've seen him take a team that was horrible and terrible that had nobody and went and they made the playoffs. I've also seen him, go out in Golden State. And if you want to talk about running the offense in the system, I want you to run the Golden State one. I want you to be able to be a great defensive team. I want to be a great team in general, and I want to know how to motivate superstars.
Sure.
That's the thing I want to see. Now, Chris Quinn, I'm going to just say this. I wouldn't be mad if they got him, but for me, I think it's the right place and the right time for Kenny Atkinson, and I think he would be able to take this team to the next level.
You know what? Atkinson, you make a lot of great points, and I am concerned about first-time coach. Mm-hmm. I am. I just think that this is, I don't know if this is the roster you want to cut your teeth with,
right?
But he has been Spoelstra's right-hand man when Spo has had great rosters and won championships, and not so great rosters and made it to the finals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he, if you truly absorb as a student in your environment, he's learned how to handle a lot of those landmines. When you coach LeBron and D-Wade, you got landmines. And then he also somehow was there when they motivated an 8 to beat the 1. So I'm with you. I do like the fact that Atkinson has experience. I do think it's just going to come down to, and if I had a little bracelet, you know, and I could put some initials on it, it would say WWDD. What would Donovan do? And that's who's going to hire. That's I think, you know, he didn't click with JB. JB was out.
So I'm not as high on Kenny Atkinson as other people, but I've done my homework and my research, and I know that since he left Brooklyn as their head coach, he's been an understudy of Ty Lue. He's been an understudy of Mike D'Antoni. He spent a lot of time with Steve Kerr. And I guess the interesting nugget that you did point to is, you know, when you talk about a system, Steve Kerr spent the majority of his playing career playing for either Phil Jackson or Pop. Okay?
With Michael Jordan.
With Michael Jordan. Yeah. And what Steve Kerr did in Golden State was take a portion of the triangle offense, implement it in Golden State, and went on to win 4 championships with it. Now, if Kenny Atkinson has taken time as an understudy to Steve Kerr and has learned a lot since his failed head coaching experience, cool. But the only thing that bothers me with him is he didn't like mesh well with superstars. Now, you can say whatever you want to say about Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. We all know they're unique individuals or whatever was going on at said time.
Well, did he coach those guys? I don't think he ever coached those guys.
He did. He got there.
And they wanted him out.
They came. He was the coach before they got there. They got there and immediately didn't like him.
But did he actually coach games with those guys, or was he gone before the season started?
99% sure he got fired in their first season.
Okay. So then I misremembered it. I thought he was fired before he ever got a chance to coach those.
So that part of it worries me.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. But if Donovan signed, I mean, it's all going to come down to, like you said, whoever Donovan likes the most.
Yeah, I think so. But we got to lean on Mike here because Mike has some inside channels from Miami, and I'm sure that you've done your research and you've investigated what your pals think about Quinn.
Yeah, Atkinson did get fired 60 games into that season.
So that was almost a full season. What was his record with those two?
28-34, but that was the year Durant didn't play. He was coming back from the torn Achilles, so it was just Kyrie.
So he just had.
So Kyrie. He actually never coached them together. So I guess you're right in that sense. But he did coach Kyrie. If you're talking about what would Donovan do, Johnnie Bryant, the guy we haven't mentioned yet, is Donovan's guy. For the record, they work together in Utah. Johnnie Bryant is a player development guru who was in Utah with Donovan. That's why they got super close. He's now with the New York Knicks. He's Thibodeau's top assistant. He's their associate head coach, and he's another guy who's quickly rising the ranks.
Do you think he's the choice? Just because he's Donovan?
I think if it was purely what does Donovan want, which it may come down to, I know he's particularly close with Donovan, has had a really good
relationship with Donovan. So if it's a tie, then it's Johnny.
It could be Johnny. He's highly regarded. It's not just a Donovan connection. He's a highly regarded assistant.
Okay.
I don't know anyone who knows him or anything like that, so I have nothing on him. But I did talk to a few guys who know Chris Quinn very well this weekend, and they both said essentially the same thing. He's the perfect mix of player empathy, analytics, and understanding of modern-day basketball, which kind of comes into what you're looking for in not a figurehead, but in a head coach, a guy who's been in their position, can understand the grind of, hey, we're playing a back-to-back 3 and 4. How much can you digest in a 2-hour game planning period when we're coming off a back-to-back? You're going to sleep on the plane, we have shoot-around, and then we're playing again. How much can you actually digest in that sense? But he's been with Spo for a decade. He's got the analytics background in terms of what stats matter, what stats don't matter, what do we need to look at, what don't we need to look at, which is just as important as knowing what to look at.
Point.
And also, he's been sitting right next to Spo, drawing up out-of-bounds plays and learning the kind of X's and O's, ins and outs of that aspect of coaching. And they both said whether or not this is the job for him, whether or not it's another job down the road, when he gets his chance, they're both confident he's going to be a really good head coach. And I thought just the fact they both said his understanding of players and obviously he played for 10 years. His ability, or not 10 years, but he played in the NBA for a while. His ability to connect with them but also have the coaching aspect is a unique blend. And he reminds me a lot of Stephen Vogt in that sense, where he was a bottom of the roster, scrapped guy, had to fight his way just to stay on rosters, understands the ins and outs of what it takes to win, and understands what it's like to be on the bottom of the roster, not a top guy. And you're seeing the success Stephen Vogt's having in Cleveland with the Guardians. It's not exactly apples to apples, but catcher and point guard are the baseball and basketball equivalent. never a starter vote. I know he had the one All-Star year, but was never, a great historic perennial All-Star player, catcher. I think there's more similarities in those two than.
What do you make of my theory that they're going to drag this out as long as they can? When is Donovan going to talk about this contract?
He can't do anything till July.
Okay, is it 11th? What is the date? 7th?
2nd or somewhere early July.
Yeah, I think I remember when LeBron.
He can't do anything till the final. It depends on when the finals ends.
Well, it's definitely after the finals.
Yeah, but then there's a certain time period from when.
10
So
days?
it's a 5game. It's a roving window, I believe.
Yeah, they don't want to trounce on the thunder.
Let me push back a little bit though. Something don't sit right in my soul a little bit.
With Quinn?
Nah. Listen, Donovan's gonna get some say in this, but I need somebody to come in that's gonna hold people accountable, too. Like, yeah, I know you want your guys in here, but I need somebody to be like, hey, that ain't what we doing right now.
So you don't think it's smart to give the keys to the castle to a guy that may or may not be here long term?
Listen, I want a partner. I want somebody that's going to partner with me in the accountability piece.
Okay.
We're gonna get a guy in here that you can vibe with and you can play with. But by no stretch of the imagination are we just bringing in anybody that you just happen to like. I got to make a decision to get not only the best out of you, but we got to decide what's up with Evan Mobley. We got to figure out what's going on with Jerry Allen. Is Darius Garland going to still be on this roster? What are we going to do about all of these things play a role in not just a small little shakeup. This is a big thing.
It's bigger than Donovan.
Yeah, it's bigger than that.
So if it's bigger than Donovan, guess what all three of us got in common? We born in Ohio, right? Chris Quinn, he from Dublin, Ohio.
Right.
I would only assume he grew up as a Cavs fan. We just got finished talking about unwritten intangibles.
Likely.
You would assume something like this, an opportunity like this, will mean a little bit more to him. And basically what I'm saying, for a guy like Chris Quinn, it is bigger than Donovan. This potentially is one of my childhood favorite teams that I get the opportunity to coach and lead to a championship. So in that sense of what you're saying, the accountability piece might be different because in his heart, it hits different coaching the Cavs for Chris Quinn than it does anybody else.
Well, you also have to take it. Some people you may want. Some people's demeanors is just different, right? I could want to do a certain thing, but there's a certain mix of personalities where, if you got a dude that is very headstrong and they want to do it their way, are you a coach that's adaptable? And the problem I had with JB, and I think the reason he lost his team, is because you hear people say, "Nah, we ain't riding with that." He was saying, like, when you get to games and you lose 20-point leads, or you're doing certain things, and you get in the press conferences and you say, "Well, I think we fought hard, and there were some things we just missed shots," and that type of stuff, you got to be willing to say. Listen, Ty Lue used to say, "Hey guys, remember this?" Ty Lue said, "We got to get guys in shape." When Ty Lue took over from David Black, Ty Lue came in and said, "We're going to have to run because we play too slow. We got guys out here running pick and roll. We need to run more." In the first 2 weeks, he said, "Guys need to get in shape."
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes things like that. And I don't know if a first-year coach could do it. Now, trust me, Spo has always been like that. But he also had the backing of Pat Riley.
He did.
When
he doesn't need it anymore, though.
He don't need it no more.
He's got cachet on his own.
But Pat told him, Pat Riley has to say, "Hey, listen, y'all can say whatever you want. Y'all not getting rid of Spoelstra. I'm backing you." Is Dan Gilbert willing to do that with a rookie coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, you make great points. And one of the things that I'm curious of, and Chris Fedor talked about this on Friday when he was a guest, and if you didn't watch Friday's show, go back and rewatch, click on Friday's show and watch the Chris segment, because he laid it out beautifully. He said, "Are we really sure that Donovan has the hammer here? It's not like he's going to tank if this guy wants to win. Donovan wants to win. He can ask to be traded all he wants to. He can't control where he's traded. In fact, you don't have to trade him."
I like that scheme.
And I liked what Chris was saying. It wasn't Chris's theory. He was just throwing out points of evidence that would lead one to believe that this is not necessarily always a player-driven league. So to me, I think JB lost his job April 4th. I think that was the date. I can't remember. when they blew the 25-point second half lead in Los Angeles to the Clippers. It was it. I watched the second half, and I literally said, you got to fire him. You've got to fire. Paul George went off. He never changed anything that he was doing. It was like he just kept saying, guys, come on, let's run out the clock. Let's run out the clock. And one possession after another, they were empty on the offensive side, and they were giving up huge buckets on that. And next thing you know, a 25-point lead is gone, and they lose the game. And I think that day, the decision was made, he's not it.
However they go about this, and I hear you, G, because it sounds like you really skeptical of a first-time head coach. Whether if it's a first-time head coach or somebody with previous experience, I think as long as Kobe Altman really identify what a coach is and make that the basis of his search, we'll be cool. And that's something that we've learned. You've been in management. What is a coach, right? Somebody that communicates, right? Somebody that's an overlearner, right? Somebody that's audible ready. You talk
motivator.
About, right? Not being able to make adjustments, right? You talk about somebody that involves community. It's not always about him. He is involving people on the staff. He talks about somebody that's honest, somebody that's a motivator, somebody that listens well. And so if you can check off all these boxes when you go hire whoever it is that you're going to hire and not make this all about Donovan Mitchell, I think everybody will be satisfied with that. The key is just identifying the right guy. The only thing I'm saying is when it comes to a first-time head coach, we forget that Mike Brown was a first-time head coach with LeBron James.
Right, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you can hire a first-time coach with LeBron James, then have faith in what you did before, man. Do your due diligence and go get the right guy.
I understand why G wants to go that route, but G, name the best 3 coaches in your mind in NBA history.
This is a tough one.
Phil Jackson?
You say Red Auerbach.
Well, if you want to go back into that day, you
Pop,
absolutely can.
Pop is right now to me the top.
Kerr,
right now the top.
Jackson.
Top 3 coaches is probably, I think Tibbs is there right now. I think Pop is historically a great coach. I think Pat Riley was a great coach. I think Steve Kerr is great. Spo's there.
What about Phil Jackson?
Phil Jackson, obviously.
Do you know what all of those guys have in common? They were all first-time head coaches at one point.
Yeah, you got to cut your teeth somewhere.
And now there's been a long list of guys that are first-time, one-time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You don't want to fall into that trap. But I think if they do this the right way, and I'm glad that Kobe said, it happens when it happens. I'm glad there's no time frame. There doesn't need to be. What's going to happen between now and, say, the end of July that it's imperative that we have our coach here. You'd like to have him sooner than later, but you got to know what Donovan's doing. And I think because that second domino in their offseason is still up and we don't know which way it's going to fall, we can't start rebuilding and recreating and trading Darius and trading Jarrett Allen and hiring a coach, and then Donovan says, you know what, guys, I think I'm out of here.
It's the most pivotal summer, almost, I would say, more even than the LeBron since the return of LeBron. Like, it's the most, because you got to think about it like this. You don't know what Donovan's going to do. So you got to have multiple plans. What if Donovan don't want to be here? Well, then that changes everything about Darius and Mobley.
Right.
The coach, if you take the coach and you get the wrong coach, then you're still going to mess up because you still got to develop. So there's a lot of different things. And then on top of that, you still need to figure out what is your plan of action for free agents.
Sure.
And you still got the draft.
But you know what's crazy is that Donovan, I don't want to say he's holding the organization hostage because he's got his own time frame for his decision.
Right.
But we always hear Donovan's a team guy. He wants to win. If you're a team guy, you want to win, and you want to stay here, which he has been on record as saying, do everybody a favor and get this extension done sooner than later. Because if you start moving pieces that today look like they're not critical pieces, Jarrett Allen, Darius Garland, and then you lose Donovan Mitchell, and now you've lost all 3,
I'll just say this because I know we got to move on. Call me crazy. I think we're the ones that don't know. I think unofficially, it's a lot that has to be done. But I think off the record, I think Donovan Mitchell had the right conversations with the right people.
Because they seem to think
I think
that he's leaning
behind
to stay.
closed doors, I think everything is taken care of. And this is why I feel this way. If all this ties back to Donovan Mitchell, the JB Bickerstaff part, right? If Donovan truly wanted JB here, JB is still be here.
I agree.
Okay, so that should let you know everything that you need to know. I truly believe behind closed doors, Kobe Altman knows exactly what's going on, and he's just taking his time with the head coaching search. He's already said the search has no impact on how we reconstruct this roster. I think the Cavs already know more than what we know in the media.
Yeah, you know what? I hope you're right, and I think you're right.
Yeah, I think they know more than we already know more.
Because Kobe seemed to be comfortable in his last
We're
news
talking
conference,
all in
then he
95% absolutes. Every time we have these conversations since the season ended, we don't talk as a panel, as a media in Cleveland, as a bunch that believes that Donovan Mitchell is walking out this door.
No, the prevailing wind is that he's staying, and I hope that's the case. Go ahead, Mike.
We're going to do a quick ad read. We're going to bring in our guest of the day. And a quick reminder that the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with that, let's welcome in our guest of the day. It is ESPN football expert Field Yates, who we are thrilled to have join us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. How you doing today, Field?
I am doing great. First of all, thanks for having me. Second of all, Jay, we meet again, my friends. So great to see you thriving. And then next, I kind of want to offer some Donovan Mitchell thoughts. Now, I'm sure your audience hears zero about my thoughts on the Cavs.
Let's go, Phil. We give a damn. Let's go. Let's go. What you got?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. I think you guys are right on here. Here's what I want to know. This is the question that I have more than any other right now. Is you guys are, I'm sure, aware that as of this year, NBA teams can start negotiating with their own free agents to be or extension talks with their own players that are eligible for an extension the night after the NBA Finals, or I guess at the conclusion of the NBA Finals.
Once
so if
it's
you're
over.
the Cavs, once it's over. But we don't know when, unless the series goes to Game 7, you don't know when that date will definitively be. So how did Kobe Altman and co. figure out what to do as it pertains to making that offer, presenting that extension offer to Donovan Mitchell? Do you just sit around and wait for a couple days after the NBA Finals concludes, or do you have to have a plane booked for every game, starting at Game 4, if it's 3-0, one way or the other, and be prepared to have those papers in the lap of Donovan Mitchell immediately to make clear how much this team and this franchise wants nothing more than for him to put his name on that dotted line to make that extension official and sort of graduate to the next step of this process. Because as we know, if Donovan, despite all of his public sort of declarations, doesn't want to be with the Cavs long term, this whole thing gets thrown haywire, although I do believe he wants to be in Cleveland.
See, this is why Field Yates is like the MVP of ESPN. You throw him into an NBA conversation and boom, 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 boom. He's talking business and he knows what's going on. Now, so I have a question for you, Field, because as you know, in the NFL, there are also markers on when negotiations can begin, when free agency begins. And even before free agency begins, the agents and sometimes the players are leaking out information, and we know about these deals. It's almost become like this formality that once the clock says free agency is open, then the teams officially announce all of these moves. Is it happening in the NBA too, where perhaps in a secret bat cave somewhere, the Cavs have already talked to Donovan Mitchell? The money is what the money is. He's a max guy. That's non-negotiable. Do you think that the NBA is playing sort of by the NFL rules and that these backroom deals are already wink and a nod, handshake done, and then once the season is over, they can be announced?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely happening, Jay, at all levels. But I think what you said is particularly important as it pertains to a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Is like there's no negotiating. Like I suppose the Cavs could try to make an offer that excludes a player option in the final year of the deal. Maybe Donovan and his party says we want a no trade clause. Small little bells and whistles like that. But I find the NFL side hilarious because there's no such thing as a max contract, right? Every player has the right to negotiate for as much or as little as the team is willing to offer. So I always laugh when it's the day one of free agency and like 7 minutes into the legal negotiating window, teams and a player have found a way to negotiate the largest contract for an offensive tackle in NFL history. Like that's a lot of ground to cover in 6.5 minutes before that tweet gets sent out from our guy Schefter. So the NBA, certainly these deals are largely done at the highest levels, these big max level contract guys. But at least in the NBA, the negotiators on both sides have the fact that there's so little negotiating actually involved. Really, the only part that matters is, does the team want to offer the max deal, and does that player who deserves that max want to stay with that franchise?
Yeah, very well said.
Field, since you want to get into contracts, I'm going to just bring it back to football. Justin Jefferson just got a crazy deal. I love it, not because I'm a Vikings fan or anything. I just like it because Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are really good friends. So now I know Jamar Chase won a contract, and now I know that they already got Hendrickson that won a bag of money, and they got T. Higgins that also wants a bag of money. And technically, I don't know if the Cincinnati Bengals have that bag of money for anybody but Joe Burrow, but it makes things complicated. What are your thoughts on the Bengals cap situation? Do you think Jamar Chase will become the new highest paid receiver after Jefferson signs his deal?
Yeah, they've got some high society problems going on right now in Cincinnati. I don't think the Browns are at all. They know how this works too, right? I mean, when you have a roster as loaded as Cleveland's is and a quarterback who's paid, in the top 8 or the position, it's going to result in having to make some difficult decisions from time to time. And for Cincinnati, do they have the money? Yes, but it's going to potentially come at the cost of some other players. And that's the reality of the NFL with a salary cap that does not include some luxury tax, where if you got an owner who's just richer than everybody else, you can dig deeper into that tax and just pay more money, and it's evenly distributed amongst the non-luxury tax teams. So for Cincinnati, I think ultimately at some point over the next, let's call it 2 months. Let's call it 3 months, because I guess until the NFL regular season begins, I think Jamar Chase gets a deal done. He's a year behind Justin Jefferson in terms of NFL experience, but in the NFL, as Jay was referencing earlier, there are defined dates of when you can begin negotiating. In the NFL, the day after your third regular season concludes, if you are a drafted player, you can start negotiating with your team. So Chase has been eligible for 4.5 months now with Cincinnati. They just haven't gotten a deal done, but in part because the patience was going to work out for guys like Justin Jefferson and now Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and some of the other top wide receivers at the market. The most complicated one for me remains T. Higgins with Cincinnati because, as you guys know, it has gone nowhere. He requested a trade. There seems to be zero interest from Cincinnati's side of obliging that trade request. But if you're the Bengals, one thing you have to ask yourself is, what can we get for T. Higgins, and does that supersede the possibility, maybe even the likelihood of a year from now, T. Higgins being in a different uniform? It just did this dance with Jesse Bates, the safety who bolted in free agency for Atlanta. I think this is notable, at least. Both Jesse Bates and T. Higgins are represented by David Mulugheta, of course, a very familiar name to Browns fans. He is also Deshaun Watson's agent, and I don't think right now things are like super smooth between those two sides based off of how the things have unfolded this offseason for T. So if I'm Cincy, I get it, trading away a player who's that good in a position that we know right now the NFL is tremendously valuing. That's not good business in terms of making you a better football team. However, you might have played a bit of the long game here, right? Joe Burrow said the window is as long as he is around. That might require some times where you take a step back to ultimately move forward. I'm not trying to make everything about what the Chiefs have done, but Kansas City acknowledged this when they traded away Tyreek Hill. We're going to have to reconfigure this roster. I think Cincinnati is probably entering that phase of their team building as well. The most obvious difference is that Kansas City has 3 rings with Patrick Mahomes, and basically every other team at the top of the heap in the AFC right now has none.
All right, Phil, let me set this up for you. Speaking of Kansas City and the Cleveland Browns, but set the scenario. I want your honest opinion. Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes are both having Pro Bowl seasons this season. Both rosters have all key guys healthy. The Chiefs and the Browns meet up in the AFC Championship game. Do the Cleveland Browns beat the Kansas City Chiefs? Why or why not?
Yeah, man. Okay, so I think that the Browns have I just want to make sure that I say these things carefully, understanding how much passion there is on both sides, right? But the rhetoric for the past few years, I think, has been accurately that Cleveland has, as good of a roster as there is amongst non-quarterbacks in the entire NFL. If Deshaun gets back to where he was prior to the trade, then I think Cleveland absolutely has the goods to beat Kansas City. Here's the reason why you have to go with the Chiefs, and this is more of a respect thing than it is like actually going one by one 53 players in total and comparing each roster is just that Kansas City, as we saw last year, has that big game medal to it, right? Buffalo had everything they could possibly want against Kansas City last year in the playoffs. They're playing at home. Kansas City was a team that was stuck in the mud on offense all year, and Buffalo couldn't get the job done. It felt like when the moment got bigger, Kansas City played better, and conversely, Buffalo, for whatever it is, a third or fourth straight playoffs, just couldn't quite rise to the occasion. So I think Kansas City, and maybe I've become sort of the easy way out guy, but I almost look at like there's a boxer that you just don't want to count out until he's been sort of like knocked down that final round. And that's where I'm at with Kansas City right now. 3 championships in 5 seasons, back-to-back Super Bowls, the best player on the planet still there. Until they're knocked out, Kansas City, to me, will be the favorite no matter where they are, what time, what place. As long as number 15's on the field, I think they deserve that kind of recognition.
I think that's well said. Their experience counts for something. And in those big games, you're right, they always rise to the occasion. I have a question for you, and it's based on part of the comment that you just made. When you go 1 to 53 on these rosters, the Browns have a championship caliber roster. I don't think there's much disputing that. But I think the obvious absence is the quarterback. And when he was brought here to be the missing link. He was going to be the reason the Browns got over the Super Bowl, or got to a Super Bowl and got over that Super Bowl hump. Obviously, we could talk for days about everything that's happened during his time here in Cleveland. The suspension, then the injury last year, coming at a time when he finally put a half of football together that looked like Houston Deshaun. I know that this is ultimate supposition and projecting. Are we ever going to see even close to Houston Deshaun in a Cleveland Browns uniform? And if so, is this the year?
The thing that I feel most confident about saying, Jay, is that we're going to find out one way or the other this year. Let's just say Deshaun has an okay year this year. Better than what it was last year, but not dominant. I don't think that dominant season arrives in 2025 or 2026. I really believe it's this year. This is the put up or shut up year. Now, does shut up mean that the Browns move on from Deshaun Watson after this season? Probably not. It's really hard to do so based off of the construction of his contract. But this is the year where I believe the Browns get the best, clearest, most obvious snapshot of what Deshaun Watson is going to be. And people have asked me about Deshaun basically in perpetuity since he was traded. And here's where I can't quite figure out. I don't know how many references there are that are similar to this, but how many players, and I'm talking nothing about what has taken place outside of the lines of the football field here, but a guy goes from 26 years old at the time of the trade, or 27, and being on the short list, if not the clear-cut number 2 quarterback in the entire NFL, so one of the best at his job in the world, and then all of a sudden falls back to the middle of the pack. That happens, we see it at 35 to 37, that happens. All of a sudden, guys just kind of lose it, right? There are players who have seen that cliff hit really, really, really hard. Brett Favre was always the most notable example when he went from on top of the world at 39 and 40, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, you can no longer win with Brett Favre as a high-level quarterback, but we see it on smaller scales all the time. Deshaun, I just can't quite figure it out because there isn't any precedent. Now, my best guess, and I'm not trying to be a psychologist because I don't think I'm qualified to do that, but I'd have to imagine everything that took place off the field has made the focus on football a lot more difficult for Deshaun. And it's going to be a sort of an exercise in compartmentalizing this year and him finding that form that he had in Houston. And if he gets there, then there's no doubt this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl this season, because we saw just how great they were last year, almost simply just based off of the defense. And then the offense found its stride with Joe Flacco, and you were like, this team is going to be a hard out if they make it to the postseason.
All right, Phil, let's have some fun, man. I'm a four-time fantasy football champion, right? Four-time fantasy champion, right?
Be asking you for advice.
Okay. Last year I had Amari Cooper on my fantasy football team. I do a good job of keeping my Cleveland Browns bias about it things.
No, you don't.
Liar!
Biggest lie we've ever heard.
So talk to me. Who got high-end fantasy football value for the Cleveland Browns this year, man?
I think David Njoku is probably the name that I'm most interested by with the Browns this year, just based off of what we saw last season. And I got to tell you, I thought that David Njoku, at the time of signing that extension, I was kind of like, that's fine. I mean, it's about what tight ends at his level make. And then all of a sudden it became like what a value it was. And there were games last year with 15 targets, double-digit catches in games. And Njoku is kind of this interesting player because while his yards per catch average was okay last season, most of the high-end fantasy football tight ends are guys that just catch a million passes, even if they don't score a bunch of touchdowns or have a ton of yards, where Njoku could be the opposite. Like there is a world in which Njoku, and this is what kind of made George Kittle a pretty rare breed during that year in which he set the single season record for receiving yards by a tight end, just north of 1,300. Njoku is obviously such a gifted athlete that if he only has 70 catches this year because, Deshaun and Amari have great chemistry and Jerry Jeudy becomes the player the Browns think he can become and they get more out of Cedric Tillman, you name it, whatever it is. He still might be good enough because he's such an athlete to post 70 catches for, 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns and be a top 5 fantasy tight end. So I think Amari will end up being the highest drafted Brown, but Njoku's the one that I'm most interested in. And then the backfield, good luck. I'm not going to try to offer an opinion yet because a lot of cooks in that kitchen, and Nick Chubb's return is so uncertain. The Browns, I think, have kind of led the march on that one, though. They have been very consistent with the messaging. At some point during the season, they expect him to return. Some point could be the day before the season begins. It could be the day before the season ends. So I'm having a hard time assessing an appropriate value on Nick Chubb, who, like many, has been one of my favorite players to watch during his time in the NFL. You always want to bet on a guy like that. But just given the uncertainty of when he will return, I can't tell you confidently you should be drafting him here or there because there is such a wide range of outcomes.
Yeah, he's a mystery. Mikey McNuggets, our producer, has a question for you.
Yeah, we've seen all the receiver contracts. We talked about T. Higgins, Jamar Chase earlier. Justin Jefferson got the extension this morning, but the first of this run of receiver contracts was actually Jerry Jeudy. And when it happened, It was 3 years, $51 million. It was a $45 million bonus onto his regular contract. And it seemed early, and at the time we were like, it may seem like a bit of an overpay for a guy who hasn't lived up to his first-round status yet. But now seeing how the rest of these receiver contracts have played out, Field, do you feel like the Browns may have gotten a steal by inking Jeudy before he had a chance to show what he could have on the field? Because if he had a productive season, these wide receiver numbers are just going up and up and up and up.
Yeah, it turns out Andrew Berry is excellent at what he does in a lot of ways, including being very good about forecasting the market. I mean, he might get mad at me for saying this. Myles Garrett's the most underpaid player in the NFL right now, right? He's got to be sitting there thinking to himself, hold on, there's wide receivers who I'm better and more impactful than. They're making $10 million more per year than I am now. So, or maybe it's even $7 million, whatever it is. But Andrew has always been excellent at forecasting markets. That Harvard education goes a long way, I'd imagine. So I think that this Jerry Jeudy contract is going to age very well. However, I will say it could become like one of the ultimate steals if he becomes the player I think Cleveland is envisioning him becoming. But he's still got to there are some boxes he must check. Because even though it's like 43% or whatever the math is of Justin Jefferson's average annual value, and CeeDee Lamb will be there at some point, and other receivers will be there in that same vicinity soon, Jerry's got to be a more consistent player than what we saw last season. Now, it felt like it was just time for a change of scenery for him, so maybe that goes a long way, and him becoming the player we all thought he was going to be coming out of Alabama because – no player's perfect, but it was pretty darn clean coming out of Bama as a draft prospect for Jerry Jeudy. Kind of checked all the right boxes. If he holds up his end of the bargain, though, in Cleveland, and Deshaun plays like I think we all believe he can play, not a guarantee, but he can play, then this deal will age incredibly, incredibly well. I know the sticker shock when the deal gets first reported. I remember thinking a little bit myself, that's a big number. I had a chance to kind of go back and look at the real numbers behind that deal. It's not quite as large as maybe the initial reporting always makes it seem, which is kind of par for the course in the NFL. I think it's a fine deal, especially with where that wide receiver market is moving.
Well, we talk about money, and I guess we'll throw a bow on it. I'm a guy, I joke and say all the time, man, there is no salary cap. The cap is imaginary. They keep restructuring these deals. They restructure them. They put some dead years on or throw. I think Jimmy Haslam is paying people twice now. He's just void those years of pay. Are there other, because we're not paying attention to other people around the league. Are the Browns just doing this because they have the money and they really want to win now in this window? Or is this something that's rampant across the league in terms of, teams manipulating the cap this way?
There are a handful of teams that are in this same boat as Cleveland. New Orleans, Philadelphia, San Francisco are amongst the most notable ones. And not to get super into the weeds on the salary cap, but essentially what the Browns are doing is they are paying players rather than their base salary in full, they convert it into a signing bonus. The reason why that matters for the players, they get that money right away. Even if it's the same amount of money, it's nice to get, in the case of some of these bigger salaried players, $20 million now as opposed to $20 million in equal installments over the next 6 months. And then from a team standpoint, when you convert any dollar that is treated as a signing bonus, it is a signing bonus, gets spread out evenly over the remaining number of years on the deal. So if it's $10 million converted into a signing bonus and a player's under contract for 5 more years, it hits the cap evenly, $2 million a year for the next 5. Now the reality is that you're going to have deals that get backloaded towards the end of them, but this is a competitive advantage that the Browns have at the ownership level with Jimmy Haslam because he's willing to pay those signing bonuses because he has the cash to do so right now. And the credit card bill will eventually come due, but the reality is what the gains the Browns are realizing right now more than offset the potential of you having to carry significant amount of money, dead money on the book. The Eagles have a couple of players that have either retired or been cut in recent years, and they're carrying some nasty numbers there. You know what, though? They got those guys in such bargains in earlier years that it's okay. So the Browns are in a fairly unique category. I know the NFL is a meritocracy as far as a salary cap. In a lot of ways, it's the same for every team. There are certain thresholds every team has to meet. This is one of the very few ways in which an owner can make a real difference. So while it may sound quirky and unconventional when you hear of these deals being restructured, the reality is it's a big benefit to the Browns to have the Haslam family being willing to pay those signing bonuses and create all that extra wiggle room for Andrew Berry and his team to work with.
Yeah, it helps. It does seem like it's a perfect match right now. We're up against a break. We've got to go. But so quickly, I have to ask you this question. We'd like to play a game here where we go cross-profession and we do equivalencies. And I have decided that if I'm comparing you to all the head coaches, this one's so simple. You're Kevin Stefanski. You're smart. You're youthful. You're handsome. If you grew a beard and you got a little bit of salt in with that pepper, you're literally Kevin Stefanski. So my last question for you is a Kevin Stefanski question. We keep being told, the extension is coming. The extension is coming. The extension is coming. But also as evidence that we're kind of looking at this with an eyebrow raised is that he made a change at offensive coordinator in the offseason that I'm not sure was his. And we're learning more. Jameis Winston saying in OTAs that this is going to be Ken Dorsey's offense and he's going to call the plays. Stefanski has said he loves calling plays. What the hell's going on here? Why is Stefanski not signed long-term? Please put my crazy mind to rest and tell me that this is eventually going to happen. What am I missing?
Yeah. First of all, I'll take that for a coach comparison every day of the week. I don't have the Penn credentials that Kevin does as far as the education is concerned, but that's okay. We'll make up for it in other ways. I believe this will get done this month. It wouldn't surprise me if this is like a going away present when the team hits its summer break, probably in the next, 7 to 10 days.
Great.
I have to check the actual date of the Browns minicamp. But it's fairly par for the course, Jay, and when these deals get done is coaches, GMs often extended in June. It's just a simple way. It's a lot of these coaches would prefer for this to not be news at all, and they'd rather just do these things in silence. Teams like to announce these things because when you've got a really good head coach like Kevin Stefanski, it builds excitement and buzz for the fan base. So it wouldn't surprise me if it gets done either right at the conclusion of this minicamp going into the summer or right when the team gets ready to come back from training camp. I always use this logic for evaluating whether a deal is likely to get done for a head coach or not. If this was the beginning of the NFL head coaching hiring cycle and there were 8 openings and Kevin Stefanski were available, would he get a job? And the answer is he might get 4 out of those 8 jobs.
That's right.
So you don't like guys like that out the building. I can't imagine the Browns would do that with Kevin anytime soon.
Hearing that from you, I feel much, much better. Also, I've given you now an idea for Halloween this year. You're absolutely going as Kevin Stefanski. I need you to take pictures and send them to us. Yeah. With that youthful face, it might take you a month, so don't shave from now until October, and you'll be full Kevin Stefanski by then.
That sounds great. I'll work on the pepper. There's salt and pepper as well.
Very good. It's truly great to see you. I always enjoyed our time together at ESPN. You are one of the truly great guys at that network there. I'm lucky to have you, and we're lucky to be able to watch you and listen to you and read you because you're always on point and you're very, very knowledgeable and plugged in. Thank you, and it's great to catch up with you, Field.
Thank you so much, Jay, and to everybody on the show. I really appreciate it. Let's do it again sometime soon. I'd always love to talk more Browns or Donovan Mitchell. You name it.
Let's do it.
And your new nickname is Field Atreides. He is now the Duke of Arrakis.
Wow.
Hey, Phil, one last thing. One last thing, Phil. Miles better not come out asking for a new contract, man. He better not come out asking for a new deal, man.
But if he gets one, I get a cut of it at least.
Facts.
But you are right, by the way. You are right. He is the most underpaid player in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Field Yates, you're
Truly.
awesome. Great to see you. And we will be taking you up on that. We'll call you again when the season comes around.
Can't wait, guys. Talk to you then.
Good seeing you.
Awesome. That was Field Yates. When he comes back, we'll get his take on Jose Ramirez and the Cleveland Monsters' third line. That's who is coming on Field Yates next.
I guarantee he'll knock it out of the park on any of those subjects.
I know he will. If you guys are looking to go to the NBA Finals this year, there's no better place to get tickets for the Finals than with the Game Time app. They have the lowest prices on the interweb, and the prices go down the closer the game gets to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They have all the best customizable support for your deals, including priority last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, their lowest price guarantee, and their Game Time ticket coverage. Make sure your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first offer. Once again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And to wrap up the show, we have a couple super chats. The first one comes from Jerry Wallace, who says, I saw a crazy stat this weekend. Attendance for the Guardians is up 27% this year, the third highest percentage increase in the league. The fans are showing up. Now it's time for the Guards to spend the money.
I wonder if that was before or after this weekend series, because I think Friday and Saturday were both sellouts.
It was so crowded this weekend when I went.
It's unreal.
It was almost hard to see the game because how many people. It was awesome. Awesome environment.
Mike,
awesome.
I'll blow your mind when I say this, but this franchise, once upon a time, what's the number, 444?
Man,
straight sellouts.
Straight.
Mike, that means the Wednesday afternoon getaway day against
sellout
against the Twins, every single
and
game.
they had more seats.
And they had 43,000 seats.
Yeah.
Can you please share this? Because whatever you just read is cracking you up.
So y'all know the chat is a part of UCSS, man. Every time we had company, they don't know how to behave.
No, I know they don't. they know how to misbehave. What did they do?
We'll do another time.
They were just cracking jokes, man. Finish up, man. Don't make me know.
Right.
No, this is all in good fun. I think I don't know exactly what I was referring to, but they like to have some fun.
I'm not going to be here for overtime. I got a jet.
Professor Chaos, that super chat is so good, I'm going to make it a topic in tomorrow's show. We're going to do this. No answer. Who would a better May, Clase or Jose? We'll have that discussion tomorrow on the Ultimate.
Who would what?
Who had the better month of May, Clase, who allowed 0 runs, or Jose? We'll discuss that on the show tomorrow. Professor Chaos, that is a great super chat. I will make sure that is part of the show. We had some memberships gifted. Phil Bowman, who, by the way, it's his birthday today, so happy birthday,
Shout out to
Phil.
Gifted 5 memberships. On Q, gifted 5.
On his birthday, he's doing things for other people.
Phil, you're
you're
my
my
dude.
guy,
He watches
man.
from Phoenix every day. So shout out to Phil in
from
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
He's
We
here
love it, man.
Every day.
And he shares my dad's birthday.
Oh,
Batman says 27 people shot of the weekend. Pray for our city. It's been nothing but rain since. Yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to the tragedy that happened in Akron.
Yeah, prayers out to them.
Batman also said, Jay, you forgot the other biggest heist. Robert Kraft got away with the sex trafficking ring.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Hey, you saw the kind of treatment the comedian got at the roast when he went there.
Oh, man. Dang. I thought we was letting him go. Oh.
And last but not least, DB Dog 21 says, here's the thing. This is the most success the Browns have had with the Haslam's since the Haslam's owned the team. There is no way they don't extend Stefanski and Berry. Stefanski realized, just like Kobe Altman did, what we were doing now won't get us a chip, so he made the decision to change coordinators.
Okay. I hope it works out. If it works out, Haslam looks like a genius.
Hey, we just scheming.
I think we all agree it'll
scheming.
happen at some point. The question is just why hasn't it happened yet?
Yeah.
That's the question we don't have a good logical
And I
answer
think
to.
Field answered that perfectly well. Like, these things tend to happen in June. I think from a fan's perspective, we've just been told it's coming. It's June. We're here. And I like the way he phrased it. It looked like it could be a going away present after the OTA.
Hey, not to end on a somber note, but rest in peace, Larry Allen. Hall of Fame offensive lineman passed away today.
Wow.
I didn't see
hear
that. Did not see that.
He was one of the all-time greats.
Man, you want to see Larry Allen chase somebody down? One of the greatest feats I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Against
Knocked the
the
ball
Saints.
out of, yeah. No.
On the interception.